The chandeliers went dark. The music died mid-note. 300 guests gasped as my granddaughter's first dance ended in complete blackness. And I sat there at the extra table in the back corner, feeling something I hadn't felt in 68 years of living. Absolutely no regret. My name is Charlotte Bennett, and I need to tell you what happened at my granddaughter Melissa's wedding. But first, let me ask you something. Where are you watching this from? Leave me a comment because I want to know I'm not alone in what I did. I want to know if you would have done the same thing. This story starts 3 months before the wedding on a Tuesday morning when my son David called me. Not video called, just a regular phone call, which should have been my first warning sign. David's 45 now, successful, married to Patricia for 20 years. They have 2 daughters, Melissa, who is getting married, and Sophie, who's 16. "Mom, Melissa's engaged," David said, and I could hear the forced cheerfulness in his voice. "They're planning a June wedding." I was thrilled. Melissa had been dating Connor for 4 years, and I adored that young man. He was kind, patient, and he actually listened when I talked, which is more than I could say for some people in my family. "That's wonderful. When can we start planning?" I asked. There was a pause, a long one. "Well, Patricia's handling most of the details with Melissa. You know how mothers and daughters are about weddings." I did know. I'd been excluded from Patricia's wedding planning 20 years ago too, but I'd let it slide. I was younger then, more willing to accept being pushed to the sidelines. "Not anymore." "Of course," I said, keeping my voice light, "but I'd love to help however I can. Maybe we could go dress shopping together, or I could—" "Mom, they've got it covered, really, but we'll keep you posted." 2 weeks later, I received a formal wedding invitation in the mail. Not hand-delivered, not even a phone call to tell me it was coming, just a cream-colored envelope with my name printed in script that looked like every other guest's invitation. I called David that evening. "Did you need to send me a formal invitation? I'm the grandmother. I thought maybe Melissa would want to—" "Mom, Patricia thought it would be nice for everyone to have a proper invitation. It's not personal." Everything was not personal with David lately. His birthday last year when they celebrated without me because they thought I was busy. Christmas when I got a gift card instead of the homemade stockings I'd made for everyone else. Mother's Day when he sent flowers through a delivery service instead of visiting. Not personal. But I swallowed it down like I'd swallowed down 45 years of his subtle dismissals. Ever since he married Patricia, I'd been gradually erased from his life, and I'd let it happen because I didn't want to be the difficult mother-in-law. I didn't want to be the problem. The wedding venue was expensive, the kind of place with marble floors and crystal everywhere. When David mentioned they were struggling with the cost, I didn't hesitate. "I want to help," I told David when he mentioned the venue costs. We were having coffee at his house, and he'd just finished explaining how the wedding budget was spiraling out of control. "Mom, you don't have to—" "I want to," I interrupted. "Melissa is my granddaughter. This is her special day." David exchanged a look with Patricia across their kitchen island. It was the kind of look that speaks volumes, the kind that says they'd already discussed this possibility and had their responses prepared. "If you're sure," Patricia said, and her smile didn't reach her eyes. "The venue is $30,000. I nearly choked on my coffee, but I kept my composure. "What if I covered half? 15,000? David's face lit up, genuinely lit up, in a way it hadn't when talking to me in years. "Mom, that would be incredible. Really, thank you." "Of course," I said. "She's my granddaughter." I wrote the check that afternoon. $15,000. Half of my savings from a lifetime of careful budgeting. My late husband Thomas and I had saved for years, and after he passed 5 years ago, I'd been even more careful with money. This was supposed to be for emergencies, for my care, if I ever needed it. But this was family. This was my granddaughter's wedding. I handed David the check the next time I saw him, 3 days later. He glanced at it, folded it, and put it in his pocket without much ceremony. "Thanks, Mom. This really helps." "I'm happy to do it. So what can I do to help with planning? I could organize the rehearsal dinner or help with—" "Patricia and Melissa have it all organized," he said quickly. but we'll let you know if anything comes up." Nothing came up. The weeks passed, and I heard about the wedding in fragments. Sophie, my younger granddaughter, would sometimes mention things when she visited. Yes, Sophie still visited me every couple of weeks, bless her heart. Through her, I learned about the dress fittings I wasn't invited to, the cake tastings I didn't know about, the bridal shower I wasn't asked to help host. "Grandma, why didn't you come to Melissa's shower?" Sophie asked me one afternoon in April. She was sitting at my kitchen table eating the cookies I'd baked for her, snickerdoodles, her favorite. "I didn't know about it, sweetheart." Sophie's face fell. "Oh, I thought Mom said you were busy." There it was again. I was busy. I was not feeling well. I was any excuse they could invent to explain my absence without admitting they simply hadn't included me. "It's okay," I told Sophie, patting her hand. "I'm sure they had their reasons." But I was lying. It wasn't okay, and I was starting to realize that my patience, my endless grandmother patience, was running out. 2 weeks before the wedding, I finally received a call from Melissa herself. I was so surprised to see her name on my phone screen that I almost didn't answer. "Grandma Charlotte?" Her voice was sweet, the way it used to be when she was little and would curl up in my lap for stories. "Melissa, sweetheart, how are you? How's the wedding planning?" "It's good, Grandma. Actually, that's why I'm calling. I wanted to talk to you about the seating arrangements." Finally, I thought. Finally, someone was including me in something. "Of course, dear. What would you like to know?" "Well, we're limited on space at the main tables near the dance floor. Those are mostly for the wedding party, Connor's family and immediate family. So we're going to seat you at one of the side tables. You'll be with some of Dad's cousins. Is that okay?" My heart sank, but I kept my voice steady. "The side tables?" "Yeah, there's limited space up front. But don't worry, you'll still have a great view of everything." Limited space. At the wedding, I'd paid half the venue for. "Who exactly will I be sitting with?" I asked. I think Dad's cousin Robert and his wife, and maybe some others. I don't have the exact list in front of me." Robert. I'd met David's cousin Robert exactly twice in my entire life. Once at a family reunion 15 years ago, and once at Thomas's funeral, where he stayed for exactly 20 minutes. "Melissa, sweetheart, I contributed to this wedding. I helped pay for the venue." There was a pause. "I know, Grandma, and we're really grateful, but the seating is already arranged, and Mom spent weeks on it. It would be really hard to change everything now." That's when I should have said something. That's when I should have stood up for myself. But old habits die hard, and I heard myself saying, "Of course, I understand." "Thanks, Grandma. You're the best. See you at the wedding." She hung up before I could say anything else. I sat in my living room for an hour after that call, staring at the photos on my mantle. There was one of me holding baby David, my face glowing with new mother joy. One of David's high school graduation, where I stood proudly beside him. One of his wedding to Patricia, where I was smiling even though I'd been excluded from most of the planning. And then the photos of Melissa and Sophie as babies, as toddlers growing up. I'd been at every birthday party when they were young, every school play, every piano recital. I was the grandmother who showed up. Until I became the grandmother who was inconvenient. I picked up my phone and almost called David, almost told him how I felt, almost explained that being relegated to the cousin table at a wedding I'd helped fund was a slap in the face. But I didn't. Instead, I did something I hadn't done in years. I called my sister, Linda, who lives in Arizona. "They did what?" Linda's voice was sharp with anger when I explained. "Charlotte, you can't let them treat you like this. It's Melissa's wedding. I don't want to cause problems." "You're not causing problems. They are. You paid for half that venue and they're treating you like a distant relative they barely know? No, absolutely not. What am I supposed to do? You could start by getting your money back." The idea had never occurred to me. Not once. But as Linda said it, something shifted inside me. I spent the next 3 days thinking about Linda's suggestion. Get my money back. It sounded so simple, but every time I considered it, guilt washed over me. This was my granddaughter's wedding. This was family. But was it? Was I really family to them, or was I just a checkbook they remembered when convenient? I found the receipt for the venue payment in my filing cabinet. I'd requested one when I wrote the check, something Thomas had taught me years ago. Always keep records, he used to say. The venue was called Riverside Manor, an elegant estate on the Connecticut River. I called them on a Thursday morning. Riverside Manor, this is Jessica speaking. How may I help you? Hello, my name is Charlotte Bennett. I made a partial payment for a wedding on June 15th, the Melissa Torres and Connor Wright wedding. Yes, I have that file right here. How can I help you today, Mrs. Bennett? This was the moment. I could hang up, pretend I'd called to confirm details, let everything continue as planned, or I could take control of my own dignity. I need to know about the cancellation policy for my portion of the payment. There was a pause. I see. Well, our standard policy requires 2 weeks' notice for any cancellations or modifications to maintain the 50% refund rate. After that, the payment is non-refundable. And if I wanted to cancel the day of the event? Another pause, longer this time. Mrs. Bennett, is everything all right? Just hypothetically, what would happen if a payment was canceled during the reception itself? That's never happened before. Technically, if a payment was disputed or canceled, we would need to immediately address it with the event hosts. We can't provide services without confirmed payment. So the event would stop? Mrs. Bennett, I really need to understand what's happening here. This is a wedding we're talking about. I understand that. I'm just gathering information. Thank you for your help. I hung up before she could ask more questions. For the next week and a half, I went through the motions of preparing for the wedding. I bought a new dress, an elegant navy blue one that probably cost more than it should have. I got my hair done. I bought gifts for Melissa and Connor, a set of vintage silver candlesticks that had been in my family for 3 generations. I didn't tell anyone what I was planning. Not Linda, not Sophie, not anyone, because part of me still hoped that something would change, that David would call and say they'd rearranged the seating, that Melissa would invite me to some last-minute wedding activity, that someone would remember I was more than just a name on a check. The day before the wedding, Sophie came to visit. She seemed nervous, fidgeting with her phone. "Grandma, I need to tell you something about tomorrow." My heart jumped. "What is it, sweetheart?" "I asked Mom if I could sit with you at the reception, so you wouldn't be alone with people you don't know." I felt tears prick my eyes. "That's so sweet of you, Sophie." But she said no. She said the seating arrangements are final and I need to sit with the immediate family at the main table. Of course she did. "It's all right, Sophie," I said, even though it wasn't. "You should be with your family." "You are family, Grandma." Sophie's voice cracked. "I don't understand why they're doing this." I pulled her into a hug. This beautiful granddaughter who still saw me as a person, not an inconvenience. Sometimes people get caught up in events and forget what matters. It's not your fault. But it wasn't an accident. That's what I'd finally accepted. This wasn't an oversight or a busy bride's mistake. This was intentional. This was them showing me exactly where I ranked in their priorities. After Sophie left, I sat down and made my decision. Really made it, no more wavering. I called Riverside Manor again. "Jessica, this is Charlotte Bennett. I called last week about the payment cancellation policy." "Yes, Mrs. Bennett." "I remember. Have you made a decision?" "I want to know exactly how to cancel my payment tomorrow, during the reception." "Mrs. Bennett, I have to advise against this. It would be extremely disruptive to... I paid $15,000 for a wedding where I'm being treated like a stranger. I've tried to be understanding. I've tried to be the bigger person, but I'm done." There was a long silence. "I understand," Jessica finally said, and her voice had softened. "Here's what you would need to do." She explained the process. "I would need to call the venue's emergency line with my payment confirmation number. They would verify my identity and the payment. Then they would need to immediately inform the hosts that the payment was in dispute and services would be suspended until it was resolved. "It will take about 3 minutes from your call to when we would need to stop service," Jessica said. "I'm required to tell you that this would likely end the reception." "I understand. Mrs. Bennett, can I ask you something?" "Yes." "Is this really what you want? Because there's no going back from this." I thought about David's dismissiveness, Patricia's cold smiles, being excluded from every meaningful moment of planning, being seated with strangers while I watched from the back as they celebrated with my money. "It's what I need to do," I said. The wedding day arrived with perfect weather, sunny, 75 degrees, not a cloud in sight. I dressed carefully in my navy dress, put on my pearls, and did my makeup. I looked in the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. She looked tired, sad, but also determined. I arrived at Riverside Manor at 5:30 for the 6 o'clock ceremony. The venue was stunning, exactly as beautiful as $15,000 should make it. White flowers everywhere, an archway covered in roses, chairs with ivory covers and gold sashes. Patricia was near the entrance, directing last-minute details. She saw me and waved, but didn't come over. David walked past me twice without saying hello. He was stressed, his tie slightly crooked, barking orders into his phone. I found my way to my seat for the ceremony. Thankfully, they'd at least seated me in the middle section for that. I watched as Melissa walked down the aisle, beautiful in her white gown, and I felt my resolve waver. She looked so happy, so radiant, and I thought about what I was planning to do, about how it would affect this moment she'd remember forever. Then the ceremony ended and we all moved into the reception hall. That's when I saw it, the seating chart. There was a massive board near the entrance with everyone's table assignments printed in elegant calligraphy. Table 1 through 10 were closest to the dance floor, with full descriptions. Wedding party, groom's family, bride's family, close friends. I found my name on table 14. It was in the back corner near the kitchen doors. The other names at my table were people I'd never heard of: Robert and Susan Chen, Margaret Riley, Paul and Barbara Mitchell, Thomas Grayson. David's distant cousins, just as they'd said. People who probably hadn't even contributed a penny to this wedding. I looked toward the front tables. David and Patricia would be at table 2, parents of the bride. Sophie was there too. 8 seats of immediate family, laughing and celebrating. I found my seat at table 14. The elderly couple already there introduced themselves as Robert and Susan. They were polite but confused. "How do you know the family?" Susan asked. "I'm the bride's grandmother." Their expression shifted to surprise, then awkward pity. They knew. Everyone at this table would know. We were the extra people, the ones who didn't quite fit. The reception started. Dinner was served. Chicken or fish, I barely tasted mine. There were toasts. David gave a speech about how proud he was of Melissa, how she'd grown into an amazing woman. He thanked Connor's parents for welcoming her into their family. He thanked Patricia for being an incredible mother. He didn't mention me once. Then came Melissa's thank you speech. She was crying happy tears, thanking everyone who'd made the day possible. She thanked her parents, Connor's parents, the bridesmaids, even the wedding planner. "And thank you to everyone who contributed to making this day so special," she said at the end, a vague blanket statement that apparently covered my $15,000. I felt my phone in my purse. The payment confirmation number was written on a card in my wallet. Before you judge me for what I'm about to tell you, let me ask you this. If you have a story where you had to stand up for yourself, hit that subscribe button, because sometimes we need to know we're not alone in these difficult moments. The first dance was announced. Melissa and Connor took the floor, and everyone pulled out their phones to record the moment. The opening notes of their song began, something modern I didn't recognize. They swayed together under the chandelier, and the photographer circled them, capturing every angle. Everyone was smiling, recording, watching this perfect moment. I pulled out my phone. I found the number Jessica had given me. My finger hovered over the call button. This was it. The point of no return. Once I made this call, everything would change. My relationship with David, with Patricia, possibly with Melissa, all of it would be damaged, maybe beyond repair. But looking at that seating chart, at my name tucked in the corner with strangers, I realized something. The relationship was already damaged. It had been for years. I was just finally acknowledging it. I pressed call. Riverside Manor Emergency Services, this is Michael speaking. This is Charlotte Bennett. Payment confirmation number RVM 2847 BTN. I'm canceling my $15,000 payment for the Torres Wright wedding, effective immediately. Mrs. Bennett, I need to verify your identity. Can you provide the last 4 digits of the card used? I gave him the numbers. 1 moment, please. Those 30 seconds felt like an eternity. On the dance floor, Melissa had her head on Connor's shoulder. David and Patricia were watching from their table, Patricia wiping away tears. Mrs. Bennett, I've confirmed your payment. Are you certain you want to proceed with this cancellation? Our manager informed me about your situation, and I need to tell you that this will immediately terminate all venue services for this event. I'm certain. Understood. I'm processing the cancellation now. You should see the lights go out in approximately 2 minutes. I'm very sorry it came to this. Thank you, Michael. I hung up and put my phone away. My hands were shaking, but not from fear. From something else. Something that felt almost like relief. I watched the clock on my phone. 1 minute. Melissa and Connor spun slowly. The photographer was crouched low, getting an upward angle. Everyone looked so happy. 30 seconds. David was now on his feet, phone out, recording his daughter's first dance. 15 seconds. I looked around the room one last time. The crystal chandeliers, the flower arrangements, the expensive linens. Half of this was mine. Half of this beauty I'd paid for, only to be shuffled to the shadows. 5 seconds. The music cut out first, mid-lyric. Then the lights went dark, completely dark. The only illumination came from the emergency exit signs and people's phone screens. Gasps, confused murmurs. Someone laughed nervously, thinking it was planned. "What happened?" someone shouted. "Did the power go out?" I sat quietly at table 14, in the dark, feeling strangely calm. Within a minute, venue staff appeared with flashlights. I could see Jessica near the entrance, talking urgently with a man in a suit, probably the manager. She was holding a clipboard and shaking her head. "Ladies and gentlemen," the manager's voice came through a megaphone, apparently the only thing still working. "We're experiencing a technical difficulty. Please remain in your seats while we work to resolve this issue." But I knew it wouldn't be resolved. Not quickly, anyway. Not unless they wanted to operate the reception on emergency power only, which would mean no music, no proper lighting, no kitchen services. I stood up from table 14 and made my way toward the entrance. In the chaos and darkness, no one paid attention to one elderly woman walking through. "Excuse me, Mrs. Bennett?" Jessica found me near the door. "The manager would like to speak with you." "I'm sure he would," I said, "but I think I should probably leave." "Mrs. Bennett, the family is asking what happened. They're demanding the power be turned back on." "Then they should talk to my son about payment arrangements. I'm no longer contributing." "They don't know yet, do they? That you're the reason for the cancellation?" "No," I said. "They're about to find out." I could see David in the dim emergency lighting, arguing with the venue manager. Patricia was on her phone, probably calling the wedding planner. Melissa was crying, whether from confusion or understanding, I couldn't tell. "Grandma?" I turned to find Sophie standing behind me, her face illuminated by her phone screen. "Sophie, sweetheart, did you do this?" Her voice wasn't accusatory, just curious. I couldn't lie to her. "Yes." "Why?" "Because I was tired of being invisible." Sophie looked back at the darkened reception hall, then at me. "Good. Good? Grandma, they've been horrible to you. I've seen it. I tried to tell them, but nobody listens to me." She grabbed my hand. "Come on, let's get out of here before Dad figures it out." "Sophie, you should stay. This is your sister's wedding. Half the wedding, she said firmly. The half you paid for, which means I'm coming with you. We were almost to my car when I heard David's voice. Mom! I turned. He was running across the parking lot, his face twisted with anger I'd never seen before. What did you do? I canceled my payment, David. You what? Do you have any idea what you've just done? This is Melissa's wedding. I'm aware. I paid for half of it. And now you're ruining it? Because of what? Because you didn't get the seat you wanted? Because you treated me like I don't matter. Patricia had joined us now, along with a small crowd of confused guests. The venue manager stood awkwardly to the side, clearly uncomfortable. You're being ridiculous, Patricia said, her voice icy. We included you in the wedding. You had a seat. You were invited to everything. I was invited to nothing, I said, my voice surprisingly steady. No dress shopping, no cake tasting, no planning meetings. I was sent a formal invitation like a distant acquaintance, and then seated in the back corner with people I've never met, all while having paid for $15,000 of this venue. So that's what this is about? David's face was red now. Money? You're holding money over your granddaughter's head on her wedding day. This isn't about money, David. This is about respect, something you stopped showing me years ago. That's not fair, isn't it? When was the last time you invited me to a family dinner that wasn't a holiday obligation? When was the last time you called me just to talk? When did I become someone you tolerate instead of someone you love? David opened his mouth, then closed it. He had no answer. The venue manager has my contact information, I said. If you'd like to discuss payment arrangements so the reception can continue, I'm sure he'll facilitate that conversation. But I won't be contributing another $1 to an event where I'm not truly welcome. Mom, please. David's anger was fading into something else. Panic, maybe, or the realization of how much he'd messed up. I'm going home, I said. Sophie, you're welcome to come with me if you'd like. I'm coming, Sophie said immediately, squeezing my hand. We started walking toward my car. Behind us, I could hear Patricia saying something sharp to David. Guests murmuring in confusion. Someone asking if the reception was canceled. Mrs. Bennett, the venue manager caught up with us. I need you to know that we'll need to resolve the payment issue before we can resume services. The family is asking if there's any way they can pay the $15,000 themselves, I said. I'm sure between David's salary and Patricia's family money, they can manage it, they just didn't want to. He nodded slowly. For what it's worth, I think you did the right thing. I've seen a lot of weddings, and the way they seated you, that wasn't right. Thank you, Michael. Sophie and I drove back to my house in silence. She was texting rapidly, probably getting messages from her parents or Melissa. Finally, she turned her phone face down. They're freaking out, she said. I imagined so. Mom's saying you've always been difficult. Dad's saying he can't believe you do this to Melissa. I gripped the steering wheel tighter but said nothing. Melissa's crying, but Connor's family is apparently willing to cover the payment so the reception can continue. They're negotiating with the venue now. Of course they were. Connor's parents were lovely people, the kind who would step in during a crisis, the kind who probably treated Connor's grandmother with actual respect. Sophie, you didn't have to leave with me. I would have understood if you stayed. Grandma, someone needed to stand with you, and everyone else was too busy being mad that you ruined their party to realize they ruined your dignity first. This 16-year-old understood what my grown son couldn't. We got to my house, and I made us tea. Sophie curled up on my couch, the same spot she'd sat in as a little girl when I'd read her stories. What happens now? She asked. I don't know, I admitted. But I know I couldn't keep letting them treat me that way. My phone started ringing. David's name appeared on the screen, then Patricia's, then David again. I didn't answer. Instead, Sophie and I watched old movies and ate the cookies I'd baked the day before. Around 11 o'clock, Sophie got a text from her father. Come home now. I should probably go, she said reluctantly. I know. Thank you for standing with me today, sweetheart. Always, Grandma. After she left, I sat alone in my quiet house and waited for the guilt to come. Waited to feel terrible about what I'd done, about ruining Melissa's reception, about causing family drama. But all I felt was tired. Tired from years of being dismissed. Tired from swallowing my hurt. Tired from making myself smaller so everyone else could be comfortable. The next morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls and 23 text messages. I read through them while drinking my coffee. David, I can't believe you embarrassed us like that. Patricia, you've shown your true colors. Don't expect to be welcome at family events anymore. Melissa, how could you do this to me on my wedding day? But also, Sophie, I love you, Grandma. You're my hero. And one I didn't expect, Linda. Sophie called me last night and told me everything. I'm so proud of you. Over the next few days, the messages continued. Some were angry. Some were manipulative. David tried the guilt approach, reminding me of all the times he'd been there for me. Patricia sent a long message about how family is supposed to support each other unconditionally. Melissa sent nothing after that first text. But Connor, sweet Connor, sent me a message 3 days later. Mrs. Bennett, I don't fully understand what happened, but I hope you know you'll always be welcome in our lives. The family dynamics are complicated, but you're Melissa's grandmother. That matters. I cried when I read that. A week after the wedding, David showed up at my door. No call ahead, no text, just showed up. Can I come in? He asked. I let him. We sat in my living room, the same room where I'd rocked him as a baby, where he'd played with his toys, where I'd taught him to tie his shoes. Sophie won't talk to me, he said finally. She's furious. She says I've been terrible to you for years, and I wouldn't listen when she tried to tell me. I said nothing. Patricia says you owe us an apology. That was lovable. And what do you think? I asked. He was quiet for a long time. I think I didn't realize how we'd been treating you. I thought we were including you. I thought the seat at the wedding was fine because you were there. I didn't think about what it meant. You didn't think about me at all, David. That's the problem. He flinched. That's not true. Isn't it? Tell me the last time you asked about my life, about my friends, my hobbies, what I do with my days. Tell me when you last treated me like a person and not just the grandmother who's supposed to show up when convenient and disappear when not. He couldn't answer. I love you, I said, and my voice cracked. I've loved you since the moment you were born, but I won't be invisible anymore. I won't fund events where I'm an afterthought. I won't accept crumbs of affection and pretend it's a feast. What do you want from me? He asked, and he sounded genuinely lost. I want you to see me, really see me, not as an obligation or a checkbook, but as your mother. I want phone calls that aren't just because you need something. I want to be included in family dinners. I want my granddaughters to know me as a person, not just as someone who shows up at holidays. David nodded slowly. I can do that. I want to do that. We'll see, I said. Because trust isn't rebuilt in a day, and I was done accepting promises without proof. Connor's family did pay for the venue, and the reception continued. I heard it was beautiful once the lights came back on. Melissa and Connor are honeymooning in Italy now. David and I are talking more, careful conversations, but it's a start. And me? I kept my $15,000.